my name is Rosa. I live in a suburban community right in between LA and San Diego. I'm currently in zone 9B, which is a Mediterranean style climate. Today is March 23rd and it was 87 degrees, so I'm definitely dealing with some warmer weather. I welcome you to my home. This is a no-dig potager style garden located right outside of my kitchen backyard door, and I thought I would share with you how I set up my garden and also to what's growing. I did recently post a video about my February garden and did a little tour, and today I'm going to do just the same and explain a couple of things I have going on. All my gardening practices I consider are better than organic, and that's because I'm focusing on the biology, the ecology, and the chemistry of my backyard and considering it an entire ecosystem that I'm truly just building layers of biodiversity with. As for all the plants, I either purchased them at a local farmer's market in my community or planted them from seed, and that's because I'm really focusing on sustainable agriculture, primarily focused on supporting local mom and pop shops as well as farmers, because they are the ones truly supporting our ecosystem and the homes that we know and love and appreciate so much. I really believe that soil is the living ecosystem and lungs of our earth, and so I'm constantly always trying to feed my soil, whether it's our fish tanks inside that we use to water the entire ecosystem or the additives that we continue to add on top of the bed, which is primarily compost and worm castings. We do also have an in-house composting system, which I'll show you in the tour. I forgot to mention it last time, but after reviewing that footage, I thought it would be a really good idea to show how we have our compost system intact and as part of our living ecosystem that we have built. So I'll make sure to include that because that is a big part of what is fueling the biodiversity in our soils above and below the surface. Everything behind me I'm about to show you in this tour is a result of me letting nature be nature. So there's absolutely no synthetic fertilizers whatsoever in my little suburban garden, and that's really helping contribute to that better than organic dynamic that I'll do a completely separate video on. It was spring at the beginning of the week, so what you'll see in my garden is a result of my winter garden being phased out from the warmer temperatures. Spring has sprung in Southern California, so a lot of my winter stuff is gonna slowly be phased out as I start integrating my seedlings that I started about a month ago through succession sowing. And that's something I'll also include in this tour because I didn't show it last time, is that succession sowing story in our own home. Okay, so I'm currently standing in my backyard doorway. So this is what you see when you first walk out. Right here I have a whole bunch of succulents on the wall. They are really happy here a majority of the time, but a lot of them get frizzled by the beams of windows in my small backyard. I'm surrounded by houses, and the glass windows will frequently blare sunbeams all throughout this area, so I need to figure out something different and make these guys a little happier and healthier. Right here is where I have my bokashi bins. If you're not familiar with bokashi composting, I would highly recommend you check out a video I will post at the end. Right here I have an empty bucket waiting to be filled, and so this is the first stop of our process when it comes to our kitchen waste and how we compost. We basically fill the bins, and this is a pre-digested process that makes it really easy and odorlessly compost within our small yard. Right here is my green stock tower, which is just totally exploding with different things. I did a little experiment. This is nasturtium right here, and it is covered in pests. Let's see if I can zoom in on some of them. So it's totally covered in aphids and also whitefly, and it's not doing well at all. It's funny because this was an experiment because I planted this nasturtium seed at the same time I planted this nasturtium over here, and this one is completely healthy. There's very little signs of any pest pressure whatsoever. I haven't pruned this one at all, and I prune this one some because it was starting to overtake this entire area and I needed to let other things grow, and it's just not happy. One of the things being is this is a pretty small space for a nasturtium like this to survive in. I should have gone with a bush variety rather than one that just keeps on trailing, and I definitely am happy I planted that one over there because it's so beautiful. I love nasturtium plants. There's so much versatility to cooking with them, and just the beautiful flowers they put off. Over here I have some thyme growing along with some ripe strawberries on there. I have some chive that's flowering. These are actually edible. I've never tried it, but I've heard people putting them in a tempura batter and then frying them. But in general, chive is such a great plant to have in your garden, and it works really well with a lot of different plants. Here I have some more edible flowers. This is arugula, and what happened was it started to get really warm. Since arugula is more of a winter loving crop, it went to seed. It's also known as bolted in gardening terms, and these flowers are edible. They're perfect salad toppers, also great as a garnish, and they just are delicious. They kind of taste nutty, a little bit like arugula, but not as much as, like, I would say a nasturtium flower tastes like arugula. So yeah, if you're interested in growing something like this, plant it in the fall so you can eat off of the arugula plant again and again, and then when it's time and warms up, it'll bolt or go to seed and make these delicious and plentiful flowers. You can also just let the flowers dry, and what that will do is make them make little seed pods that you can then in turn plant another season. I also have some lettuce right here that I continue to pick off of, and violas and pansies down at the bottom. Here is the Schwarzenbeeren blueberry plant. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that because it is attracting. It looks like a lot of pests, and although it is extremely fruitful, I recently read that the berries before they're ripe are poisonous, and since my daughter is back here with me all the time, I'm not really loving that idea because she loves berries of any kind, and I know will help herself, and I just want to make sure that we don't have any trouble. I have some more strawberries right here. I have some curl parsley and flat leaf parsley right here. Some more of those arugula plants and flowers. And then I completely cut down this celery again recently, and it's already back. It's invasive in my container, so I'm probably gonna have to take this out completely. And what I'll do is actually dig up the root ball itself so it can stop, because it's overtaking this, and I want to grow other things in here other than just celery in that middle section. Here I have a ton of berries, and they're looking super happy. And then down here I have some oregano growing. I recently purchased the oregano, the chives, and the thyme from the farmer's market. I had purchased from this vendor last year, and I had such a great success with his succulents and herbs. I wanted to make sure I went back to him to support his business, especially because right now it seems like a lot of people have been hit hard, but usually farmers take it the hardest. Over here I have that leek that isn't doing too well, a few sparse chives, some cauliflower, and a garlic. And then all this right here are weeds that sprung up. Some of them have gotten to seed, and I'm not too worried about that. What I plan to do is completely chop them down, perhaps even pull out the roots on these ones, and then use them as a fertilizer. A lot of weeds that come up are actually biodynamic fertilizers, and what that means is their root zones are actually able to reach longer depths below the surface and pull up additional nutrients that wouldn't be accessible to most plants. These guys can actually be filled with nutrients that give back to the plants once they start decomposing. Here I have spearmint that I recently harvested from that came back pretty much from the dead. Here I have my lemon balm, and this beauty right here is a nasturtium plant, and it's one single plant. I started a nasturtium plant exactly in this same exact space last year, and it was so fruitful that I decided to plant it again. I saved seeds. What happens is these flower pods turn into green little pods, which then harden and fall down to the ground. Like, I'm sure if I look down here, I could find some of the old seeds. And I absolutely love this plant because everything on the plant is edible, from the leaves to these beautiful flowers. I'm a sucker for a nasturtium on any kind of plate, especially the flowers for garnish. Now, 2 days ago, this plant just started flowering, and I love that because nature knows. Under the nasturtium, I have some more lettuce. I have leeks in here. Here's another lettuce. And this plant, as you can see, could very easily overtake a garden. So within the near future, I'll be pruning this back to make sure it doesn't take over this complete bed. I can still have this growing and trellising up while also continuing to have plants down here. You just need to make sure you continue to prune. Here I have a lime tree that's starting to flower, and then here I have a tangerine. In here I have some sage that's also starting to flower. Another farmer's market purchase was this mint over here. And then I have this little tower that my mom purchased from the dollar store a couple years back. And this just has some cute little succulents from the farmer's market as well. Over here I have my lettuce bed that I showed in the last video, and because of the warmer temperatures, some of the lettuce heads are starting to bolt, which again means going to seed. I can still continue to harvest the outer leaves on a lot of these, but when a plant goes to seed, like the one back here, that basically means the leaves are super bitter. The plant puts a majority of its energy into creating those seeds. So the lettuce itself can sometimes be undesirable. So the biggest thing I want to do here within the next couple days is harvest a majority of this lettuce, let maybe one go to seed completely, and then just cut the rest basically right here at the surface level, and that's what creates a great soil ecosystem, because the roots from this lettuce will pretty much decay in the soil and feed the insects and mycorrhizal network, as well as the bacteria, which will basically feed on the decaying matter, and then they'll create an excrement which continues to fertilize the soil, and so therefore continuing to feed the ecosystem. Up here I also have some peas. I'm starting to see signs of powdery mildew, so when you see stuff like this, you do want to basically take the plant down so it doesn't infect other plants. I can say though that powdery mildew lives in the soil. Your plant can actually succumb to stuff like this as it grows out of season. And that's just because it's out of its ideal growing conditions, and basically it's been weakened because it's either too hot or too cold, or sometimes you can see it with poor soil health. A lot of my beds are still pretty much a blank canvas in my eyes. I hadn't transitioned a lot of my seedlings that I have growing inside out yet, because I was kind of looking for that Goldilocks period. If I would have planted them any earlier, then they wouldn't have done well and produced later on in the summer, and it was really too late to continue planting any winter crops. So right here you're just basically seeing a calendula plant in the far corner right over here, and then some basil as well as garlic and chives. This is a Pacific Beauty calendula plant, and I really loved having it back here because I've added the flower petals to salads, as well as made flowers into tea with the spearmint and peppermint, so it makes a homemade sleepy time tea. In this little pot over here at the end of the bed, I have some German chamomile, and I tried to plant in this one borage and it didn't come up. I'm pretty sure that's a weed seed, so I'm going to try and plant that one from seed again in the coming future. So here I have a bed with pure mushroom compost on top. I have garlic down here, and then the overwintered black pepper plant that I had mentioned brought me to tears. I absolutely love this plant, even though it's super spicy beyond even what I like for spice level, and I like spicy because it continued to produce peppers even during winter. Now it doesn't look so hot right now because peppers are tropical plants and they love heat. So when I had a hard freeze about 2 weeks ago and it reached 30 degrees in the evening, this pepper just wasn't happy. I'm not worried about it though, because this pepper plant is super resilient. This is the second year I've had it, and it came back last year with a vengeance, and I can tell this year it will also be coming back with a vengeance. Now, I mentioned it being too cold for my summer crop, and this is a tomato that actually struggled a lot last year, and I cut it at the base of the soil. It overwintered and just started sprouting again, so that's a nice little cool addition to this little area. I'm not gonna try to cut it down at all, and I'm gonna let it continue to grow since it obviously has a will for life, and I'm not someone to take that away from any person, or in this case plant, and I really am looking forward to seeing how it does for the rest of the season. Over here I have pretty much an evergreen with the rosemary, and then this bed still just has garlic in it. Over here I have my elderberry plant, and then this is also a new addition from the farmer's market, and it's a peppermint plant. So this peppermint and this lemon balm and spearmint are all in containers because these plants are really big bullies. They'll pretty much outcompete any plants you plant next to them. So you always want to make sure that these are planted either in their own containers or in a container or garden bed that you're looking to strictly dedicate to just them. This is another calendula plant that I have called strawberry blonde calendula. This is another ingredient in the sleepy time tea I make that I also used last year's chamomile flowers in, and it turned out so good. In the cauliflower bed, I also had this little baby calendula that I'm excited to have because then it'll create a triad of calendula between the strawberry blonde and the Pacific Beauty over here, and then that calendula right there. Over here I have some baby sunflowers. There's one right here, here, and then over here. I also have the 2 kales right here, and then some garlic planted in the bed as well. And then over here I have some garlic planted, some additional sunflowers right there, and right there, as well as a mustard plant, a lettuce that's not doing well because of the heat, and another kale. I have a nasturtium also growing right there, a poppy, and then of course garlic all over. Over here next to my pepper plant I have our in-ground compost bin. So as I mentioned earlier, I did a video recently all about how to set up an in-ground odorless compost bin. I will link it at the end. So this is a hot compost pile. When I lift up these brown paper bags, I can literally feel the heat coming out from underneath it. And this is basically a lasagna style compost pile that is filled with layers of carbon and nitrogen, as well as mushroom compost and cow manure to create healthy soils. The compost bin is in the furthest part of the backyard itself, up against this wall back here, and even though it's on the far part of the backyard, I can't smell it at all in any part of the backyard, which is really nice because I always want to think of my neighbors, and I don't want anything offensive to be coming from our yard. Over here, again, I'm letting the weeds kind of grow out of control. Probably by this weekend, I'll be pretty much pulling all these weeds to create a fertilizer for the plants that I'll use throughout the backyard. I did plant some nasturtiums over here, but I'm not going to keep them there. I decided I'm going to take them out. And then I also love having back here the aloe vera, the 2 cacti, the ponytail palm, some sansevieria, and then my jasmine. I really wanted jasmine back here. It smells so wonderful, and I'm so happy it's blossoming. I do need to make it fuller down here at the pot so I can have it line the entire trellis back here, but even just seeing the jasmine in a small amount made my heart so happy. This tree is also coming back, and so is that one, so I for sure know that they're the same, and it'll be nice to have it back here in this area once it gets more mature, because I know it'll offer a lot of great shade and a great home for hummingbirds, because I always see hummingbirds flying in and out of that tree, and that's such a great omen for me. So I look forward to this one being a big tree one day as well. So this is the last part of our tour today. Right past the goldfish tank in my Zen den, I have an antique greenhouse cabinet where I start my seedlings. We have a video up on our channel all about how we set up this greenhouse cabinet, but I absolutely love it. So what I plan to have as my summer crop is basically maturing in this cabinet with the ideal conditions for growth. That way I can transition them outside within the next couple weeks when a more favorable growing environment is available for them. If you enjoyed watching this video, please feel free to like, comment, share, or subscribe. And of course, check out all our other videos on how we're homesteading from our own backyard in a small suburban community. Thank you.